Okay, this is part 2. I have so many workers coming. Set the alarm on my phone, and the alarm interrupted the video. Sorry about that. So what I was about to tell you is that the ironic thing is that sometimes we start to really grow and learn, and then shit happens that isn't necessarily viewed as a personal assault now anymore. Now it's because it's new, a new situation, a new disappointment, there's a reaction that feels very much like the old. So then to say the reaction is proportional to the incident, you can just about wager that they're disproportionate, something like that. You know what I mean? So, we have to analyze it. We have to sit down and think about it before we take action. We have to calm the hell down, force ourselves to calm down. It's not about being a victim of the circumstance of another person or another situation. Sometimes it is. But before you can put out or get to the situation itself, you have to get rid of the flames, right? And you have to calm those embers before you can go in and see what can be salvaged, to see what you have to really work with. what property is actually there. The flame and fire, that has to come down. And that's what I'm talking about here recently. Is it's not about being a victim or being an abuser even by accident. It's about calming down to neutral before making any big decisions, because the reaction is almost guaranteed when you're feeling up like that or down like that. It's almost always an overreaction to the situation. If you had been a PTSD or trauma victim, that's important to know if you have or not, because relationships can live and die by words and deeds. Sometimes a relationship that's been built on for a while fairly successfully can be torn down in one day, in one sentence. So you have to be careful. I'm not talking about long-term relationships. I'm talking about new relationships even, or friends. There are some situations that can happen between friends where, oh, well, that's not going to happen again, kind of thing. And if they've had their own trauma, their own heartbreaks, their own fears, they're not going to put up with it. Now, when you get two people who've had trauma, who have had addiction, and get them together, sometimes there's an understanding there that nobody else would have. And remember that these people who have been brought up as children who have to pretend that everything's okay or else, they accidentally, because of the narrow pathways, they're pretending. It takes a long time to start working on some people are pretty darn complicated. It almost takes a spiritual awakening for some people. I mean, a spiritual awakening, a light from God, to go, wait a minute, you have to work on every single thing in your life. Because it's not about each thing, it's about how you're programmed to see each thing. So the work starts here, not necessarily out here, unless those things are really negative in your life and shouldn't be there anymore. You know, like illegal activity, physical abuse, things like that. So you have to kind of do an inventory of your physical and emotional life. Where's my dog? Frankie. Frankie. Come. Good boy. Hi, honey. He's so worried about who's under the house. You're all right. So mental health isn't always easy. And some people, they don't understand it. And so it's so much easier to just walk away. It really is. There's a lot to be said for being smart enough, strong enough to just walk away from people who obviously do not have a happy way to live their life. A normal way to interpret the things that happen in life. And I highly recommend that if you meet someone like me, better make sure they've been working on their stuff for a couple decades, because they can really be a drain. It can really be a drain. You have to be very open-hearted, open-minded. You have to be... What do you got? What do you got? Thank you. Oh, that's yours. Okay, good boy. Some of the bony head. And then you can very often have a very good friend, because it's almost like, what do they say? Loyalty, honor between thieves. There's a certain level of honesty you're going to get with someone, a certain amount of safety you're going to feel with someone who's had some of the same types of experiences. Maybe not so much in the trauma, but in the healing process. To be able to say, I've heard this many times in meetings, they'll say, the best thing that ever happened to me is when I got into AA. Or when I figured out I was an alcoholic, because then I knew there was a solution. And Alcoholics Anonymous helped me find the solution. See, these different programs, they have a course for living. They have an outline for living. And if we can wrap our minds around the self-discipline it takes, and then when you're coupled up with someone who has some of that stuff going on, it can be really great, or it could be a real pain in the butt. Just depends on what's going on. Anyway, then you take someone who is working on their program, who is working on self-improvement, and then you have, and this is what happened to me, my spouse has had horrible back pain for most of his life from a fall he had as he was working up the ladder at a business he worked for. Always a hard worker, always driven and successful. But he had a fall and injured himself in a way that his back was just nuts painful. So already a drinker, probably started drinking even more for the pain. Well, sometimes the pain would be worse than others. And when you've gone without drinking, because now you realize drinking is too much trouble, way too much trouble, then the only thing standing between you and the pain is a doctor's prescription. Then you try to get off the doctor's prescription. Well, then you're just a very sensitive person because of all that pain. And the potential of a pain. People who have had migraines understand what I'm talking about. The migraine might finally be gone, but for days you're just waiting for it to come back, staying really calm. You know, it can be exhausting. So I finally talked my spouse into getting his back reevaluated because it had been a long time and had been so discouraged to think that he was always going to be in this kind of pain and kept him from doing the things that he loved to do. So I talked him into getting another evaluation. Turned out they said, yeah, let's operate. It was a whole thing. Brought in a group of people getting a similar operation. His turned out to, even though they had the x-rays before they went in, turned out to be a much bigger deal than thought. He did survive the surgery, although it was touch and go for a while. His recovery time was messy, totally unexpected, unprepared for, because it wasn't something that was supposed to be a thing. And part of his ongoing recovery from a list of things, because, you know, alcoholics like to switch addictions, or I should say addicts. So alcohol, pharmaceuticals, shopping, and then overworking and re-injuring. It was a thing, right? But I met him in recovery. So there was a wonderful way for us to bond, and I did not have to have the brunt of that. But I basically talked him into getting that surgery. There's no doubt about that. I did. Because it was, with age, the pain was getting worse. You know, when you get an injury when you're young, you kind of put up with it. It's irritating, you put up with it. But as you age, if it's not healing right, that's where you'll go to Walmart and see these people hunched over. They didn't get the medical care they needed. They didn't get the physical therapy they needed. And now that's what they're looking and walking and feeling like every day for the rest of their life. So I was like, I'm not going to live like this. You go get that surgery. I mean, it was conversation after conversation until I was done. I mean, it was really affecting. Well, and then here, because of my encouragement or threats, this surgery has taken years. And the pain level of recovery may not be, for a couple years, the pain level was every bit as much, if not more, than what was suffered before the surgery. Yeah. So the guilt that I felt didn't last long because I knew that it only made sense to try it the way the doctors, it only made sense to get it reevaluated. After so many years, science changes, and it only made sense to believe the doctor because the doctor made sense. And then you're with this group of people, that's how they sell you condos. Anyway, it's been a long, hard journey to even hope that things would get better. And because it looked like things were not getting better, I was planning my exit. Now, I hesitated because I was too embarrassed to leave someone who was ailing, who was basically handicapped. And I wasn't leaving because of the work, the laundry, the ice packs, the errands, the food, the taking care of an invalid. It was the damn attitude. The verbal, emotional abuse, the looks, the hatred, because it was my fault, right? So came this close to leaving. And then I decided to try one more thing. Oh God, I'm not the brightest person in the world sometimes. And I don't always do it right, but I'm constantly learning. I had a long, intense lesson in life on how to do it wrong. So on how to do it right, even though I teach it as a therapist, for these situations that come up in my life and handle them well, it's a challenge. And I let my clients know, I know this is hard work. Don't think for a minute that I think what I'm asking you to experiment with is easy, because it's not. So anyway, I had one more threat. You either get mental health, or one of us is leaving. And in our financial situation, for him ailing and for my age, it's just wouldn't be very fun. So when he started making an appointment for mental health, I thought, okay, we'll see. I didn't like how that was going with that counselor, because that young, pretty little brat sided with him about, making excuses for his behavior, making it look like or sound like I was overreacting. So then it was like, okay, we tried somebody else. She was young and attractive and fell for it. He'd go in there feeling pretty good. I guess the adrenaline of the appointments helped mask his pain or emotion. So then I was just like, you know what? This was a long, drawn out deal. So then it got down to where I'm done jacking around. This isn't about placating to make me stay. This is about me marrying one man, ending up with a different one, whether it's my fault that you got the surgery or not. This is about how I'm going to live the rest of my life at my age. Am I really going to have someone in my home treat me like this? Fuck no. I'm going to live out of my car first. I'm not going to do it. And instead of saying it all upset, because that's my MO. I said it very calmly, very rationally, very mathematically, and gently. And I think that's what made it possible, and it very often does with humans. Very often, when someone's yelling and screaming, it just looks like a fire that needs to be put out. You don't really get to the underlying issues. But when you can be very calm, there's no fire, there's no flames, there's no embers, you're just very calm. And that's what you have to work with. Most humans will take you a little more seriously. When there's the eye contact, the timing is right, the topic is right, you're only saying what you mean, meaning what you say and not saying it mean, then you can be taken seriously. But the yelling and screaming doesn't help anyone. I'll be back. Hold on.